Hey, AP Lang, it's Wednesday, and today we're going to talk about some conclusions. So, we're going to keep on that same idea as good versus great, give you lots of ideas, and then for homework tonight, you will be writing your own. Okay, so just a little bit of review from yesterday. We looked at, you wrote an intro, I believe it was on Friday. Monday, no, Tuesday, then you were working with those thesis statements. And remember just what a good versus great thesis is. A good one includes two specific devices the writer uses, includes the name of the writer, the strong verbs, has the purpose and the message. A great takes it a little bit a step further. They kind of think about the strategies the writer does, strong verbs, they are focusing on those shifts that are sometimes a little more difficult to find. Okay, so today, like I said, we're looking at rhetorical analysis conclusions. So some questions that people always ask: how long should my conclusion be? So we're going to talk about good versus great, and a lot of times this is going to come down to like a game time decision for you. Are you super comfortable with the passage and you found that you have a lot of time left at the end? Then great, write a 3 to 5 sentences. I know I said this in class a few times, but the conclusion can be, if you're running out of time, this is where you would want to take that time. If you get down 1 or 2 sentences and you feel like you've restated and accomplished what you need to accomplish, that works too. So once again, it just kind of depends on how comfortable you are with the passage, how you're feeling about the things that you've already analyzed, and what you can put into your conclusion. So that kind of answers the next question, how important it is. You do want to look at it as like your final, your final hurrah. This is what the impression you're leaving people with. However, the analysis that comes in the body paragraphs is a little more important. What should it look like? We're going to walk through the things that you need to have in there. And then why are we jumping to conclusions instead of talking about body paragraphs? So there should always, not should, a good technique to use is connecting intros and conclusions. So that's why we're going to jump into conclusions. And then tomorrow we'll kind of get into body paragraphs and some reasoning. Okay. Whoa. All right, so the definition here is the conclusion of an essay brings your writer to a unified end. The conclusion may touch back on your thesis. It may engage or focus the audience by explaining the significance of analysis within a broader context, making connections, calling the audience to act, suggesting a change in behavior or attitude, proposing a solution, leaving the audience with a compelling image, explaining implications, summarizing, or connecting to the intro. So in a nutshell, those are all the big fancy words. It makes sure it relates and it's a natural extension of the rest of your essay, that it avoids leaps in logic. So like all of a sudden you shouldn't be saying something in your conclusion that people are like, whoa, where did that come from? I've never heard that. It wasn't brought up anywhere else. And that it uses strong transitions as needed. Okay, so one of the techniques that we're going to look at that can be super effective is just leaving your audience with a compelling image. So have you, in your conclusion, you've restated your thesis, you've done those other things that you need to do, and then all of a sudden you leave them with one last attack of vivid language. Can you create a scene for your reader? You always want to keep it relatively brief. Now, you don't want to be going on, like I said earlier, a new tangent, a new story. Is there some image that you've created in your intro that you could come back to in your conclusion? So that's a great one. That's just strong words, strong verbs, strong adjectives, and creating an image for your reader to end with. Another good technique is connecting to your introduction. I'm sure you've heard this one before. If it works, do it. If it doesn't, do not force it. It could be good just to read through your intro and think, okay, I talked about that topic there. Maybe I can come back full circle. It just makes it feel cohesive, and it shows that you've had some organized thoughts as you've written your essay. So go back, see if you have a unique element in your intro that you could bring it back to. Are there just some concepts even in your intro? You want to restate that thesis, but in new words. I've been looking at a lot of information and reading a lot of information and watching a lot of information on this rhetorical analysis, and I thought this was really wise. So I think students sometimes struggle with the, restate, but don't make it exactly the same. But a good way I heard it explained was, what if you wrote it in such a way that wouldn't be totally clear to every person who would read it? You don't want to take the chance of, sorry, my kids are outside and they're like flagging down random people who are driving by. You want to make sure you're using new words just in case something that you said, the way you stated your thesis before didn't work for people. Restate it in a new way, but same big ideas. And then make sure you're doing the rest of your writing justice. So I think this one is big. So like I said earlier, if you are finding yourself crunched for time, yeah, conclusion is where you could cut it. However, you want to make sure if you've written this amazing essay, you want to make sure that you do it justice by giving your audience just as great of a conclusion. Okay, so right now you are going to want to get into Google Classroom and find the student sample in there. It is titled Student Sample Albright, and then there's the Wednesday homework as also. I just made it all on one document. So if you could go read that essay, you can just pause this video here and then come back, and then we're going to look at some different sample conclusions. All right, I'm assuming that you guys did your reading. So here is a sample conclusion. This is what we would consider good. Like, it does all of the things, it has what we need, but it doesn't push it over the edge to that great. So in her commencement address, the graduating class of Mount Holyoke College, to the graduating class of Mount Holyoke College, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright models the power women can yield by contrasting hypotheticals with reality, providing anecdotes of women facing adversity, and encouraging the graduates to persevere. Albright motivates and inspires women to make a difference regardless of the challenges they face. So that's great. I'm crunched for time. I spent so much time analyzing and doing body paragraphs that I just kind of had to do this formulaic conclusion, but it works. So it brings up the speaker, it says who she's talking to. It once again kind of goes through the three things that this person probably wrote their essay about, and it talks about like what was that big purpose. She was inspiring women to make a difference. I also think that in times like this you could think about the broader context. I don't think it just has to be women here, so that would be an element to think about, when you're wanting to make it maybe a great conclusion. She's inspire anybody who wants to fight for human rights. It doesn't have to be just women. Okay, 2 examples of great conclusions. So I'm going to I'm not going to read all of these out loud. I'll give you guys some time to read them, or else just pause the recording. These were considered great. They take it up a notch, and you can probably tell pretty quickly, like, there's just a lot more information there, but they've also just done some things differently. So read them, and then I will kind of talk about what I think makes these great conclusions. So pause if you need to. Alrighty, so why are these great conclusions? So the first one here, you have read this passage or before, the speech that we evaluated by Albright. So if you remember, they talked about glass ceilings there, and we talked about how that was great in an intro. Well, look, they connected back to that one in this conclusion. While we have made advances in gender equality, more can be done to effectively break the glass ceiling restricting women. So they connect back to that introduction, and just kind of could connect to the broader the significance there. And the second example, this creates an image. So you can actually see the bottoms of these are the same, but we just kind of almost have a hook in the intro, which is an interesting way to think about it, I guess. And in the second one, they created that image of the girl sitting there looking for a role model in their caps and gowns. There's a lot of hope there. I think we have all seen someone graduate from something, and we can feel the hope in a situation like that. And this writer did a great job and just created that vivid image. So you don't want to take it too far. And then, like I said, both of these at the end, they're actually the same exact ending where they bring up what had been talked about and kind of restate the thesis and what the purpose was. So just think about what works for you as a writer. I know a lot of you were doing these kinds of things already, which is awesome. Okay, so just to kind of keep it in a nice quick version, a good one will have 1 to 2 sentences. It summarizes the essay, but within that summary, hope you've restated the thesis. A great is more like 3 to 5 sentences. It summarizes the essay. It includes something like broader context, makes connections, create images to connect to the reader, or it could connect to the introduction. Now, don't try to do too much. It's not the kind of thing to spend 10 or 15 minutes of your 45 on by any means, but if you're thinking feeling connected to the passage, that making that a great intro is a good idea for you. Okay, so your homework. You should already have the Student Sample Albright and Wednesday homework pulled up. You'll notice at the bottom of that, so just keep scrolling, there is another student sample. It's written over the Margaret Thatcher piece, and you're going to construct your own conclusion. So definitely refer back to these samples. Think about what was going right in these, and you can even walk through, do I have a sentence like this? Because I know some of you are looking for, that more formulaic idea, which is great. And then I think you just need to add your own spin and your own voice on it. So totally go back and use some of these samples we've looked at to help you. And I think that you guys can handle this. Alrighty, I'll talk to you later. Bye.